Good morning.
Good morning.
Feels kind of awkward. Feeling like I should be sitting in one more meeting instead of standing up here.
The H Dale's with you.
I'm Scott Powell. For those who may not know, I've been at EDC for about 25 years, and the bulk of my background has actually been in treasury and capital markets, and people leadership for 10 years in overseeing our loans administration group that administers all of our loan agreements. And then I joined this team, Operational Excellence, 5 years ago when the team was created at EDC. It was actually created by executives who were looking to drive lean enterprise-wide across the organization. For about 7 years, we like to say lean came to EDC in 2007. And I took over the helm in late 2013, right at the time when the executives wanted to take it enterprise-wide. They wanted to lead by example, and they wanted help. So they stood up this team to be a team of coaches, and we took about 5 months to organize ourselves and learn what it meant to coach the most senior leaders. So we actually made a very strategic decision to drive lean enterprise-wide from the top down, where many companies' history is it did start at ED. It started local, usually down at the mid-level leadership, and getting successes and expanding, and that is exactly how it happened at our firm. But at some point, every firm organization will get to the decisions: how do we get the DNA spread enterprise-wide? And there are many ways that firms do it, and there's many ways that we do it. One of the ways is we stood up my team to sit in the center, not in HR, to sit in pretty much in a division that's like a center of expertise. We oversee enterprise capabilities, so we set the standards in certain disciplines. This discipline is my operational excellence, and there's enterprise excellence, there's enterprise information management, there's corporate reporting, and we have the capital budget also. So a lot of organizations will put their lean divisions either in HR or in where the capital budget is controlled, because a lot of the large transformations or even smaller improvements need funding. And we quickly learned to organize ourselves to coach the executives to sort of play their position by setting the behavioral and the principal expectations of the firm, and they themselves role modeling what I'm going to talk about, the systems and the tools that we ask all leaders to put in place and all employees to use for the purpose of bringing principle-based behavior to life in the pursuit of our results. So our tagline, which we've taken from the Shingo Institute, which I'm going to talk a lot about here for you. I'm going to share with you what is the Shingo Institute, why does EDC care about it, how has it helped us drive our culture, and where has it not helped us, so I can get to those themes. And the tagline there is, it's about ideal results with ideal behaviors. In the 5 years that I've overseen the team, it's been a team of coaches. Half of the team have been Lean Six Sigma certified black belts or green belts, and the others have been high potential talent from the organization that we asked to join the team for a couple of years and then go back into the workplace. We've managed to do that on a couple rotations now, and I'd say about half of those staff have gone on to people leadership. So that's another way that we've been spreading the DNA, is having people join the team and coach areas that they didn't come from also. It is about culture. It's about leaders shaping and using adjusting their beliefs and mindsets to lead a different way, to lean as lean leaders. And we'll talk about the importance of that in a few minutes also. So the overall presentation that I geared for you here, there's a lot of slides, but we'll move through them pretty quickly. You can hold me accountable to that, and maybe I'll get you to rate this presentation before I leave, so I see the experience you had, or tell me what I could do to make it better. But I'm really going to give you a lot of theory around the Shingo model. I'll show you how we brought it to life inside EDC, and then we can engage in dialogue on how it shows up in the day-to-day, and how we really bring it to life from that perspective to make it real for people. And it's got to be real in the context of what you've been asked to do, whatever your area, your division, your team, or if you're a frontline employee. What are the results that you've been asked to produce, and it's about how are you producing those results. Anybody have any questions to get started? Ideally, I'll be able to draw on a lot of experiences. We've been able to coach every industry inside our firm, whether you're a lawyer, an accountant, a salesperson, an economist, IT specialists. We've gone enterprise-wide. We sort of sit at this point where the culture has been installed, like the use of management systems and tools has been installed, and now we're learning to take it to the next level. And we'll talk about what that looks like. Who here is familiar with the concept of management systems and tools? Is that new, those words? Are they? They're new. Okay. It's good to know. So there'll be a lot to learn then around the theory from that perspective. We could flip to the next slide. One more. I'm going to spend some time talking about how you can connect how we think. How they can only think different. We could to get these results. If we could only get somebody to think different, wouldn't that be great? And connect how that thinking and our mindsets are connected to culture. And I'll show the role. There's sort of a sequencing of events. And I think you might have seen this before, but it really sets the stage for when I talk about this thing called the Shingo model, the use of management systems and tools, and why that's important. Flip to the next slide. I'm going to start with this slide going from the top left to the bottom right. But one thing that we all tend to have with us when we show up to work are a set of beliefs and a set of mindsets. And that's very important in shaping the culture, because our beliefs and mindsets as leaders, if you're not a leader, put your shoes in, pretend you're a leader of an area or a team or the entire division. How your mindset and your beliefs show up every day is evident in how you behave. And I don't have to ask you what your beliefs or mindsets are, because you can tell me what they are, but you can't fake that for long, because your behavior will present itself. As an example, do you believe in creating value for the customer? Some people may or may not. Somebody may not believe in that, but they'll tell you they believe in it. But that will show up in the day-to-day in their behaviors and how they interact with you, and the way your leader will drive you to pursue your results. Do you believe that that you can make a change? Do you believe it's possible in this organization? A lot of leaders will say they believe it, but it really shows up in their behaviors. So the role of your mindset and your beliefs has a big impact as a leader, because it does drive how you behave. And I think you guys have seen some presentations on this when we talked about a high-performance organization and the role that mindsets play. It's not new. The key thing, though, is the number one contributor to climate on a team is the leader's behavior. The leader plays the number one role in shaping that climate. So how you show up to your area and look at your results that may be on a wall or the performance report, and results aren't performing as expected, maybe they're red, you're not winning. If a leader shows up and behaves or saying, why is this red? Why is this red? And leaves and comes back every week and just points, why is this red? What type of climate do you think that's going to set in your area? How will your staff behave?
It'll be negative.
Probably a negative. Nervousness.
Yeah. What does she want? What does he want?
What does he want? What does he want? And I gotta calm my breathing down for this. I'm starting to perspire a little bit, so my apologies. And versus if the leader shows up and says, I notice we're red. What's the plan? Let's talk about the plan. Let's get a plan. Does that change the climate on the team?
Should.
Yeah, it should. The way you approach the conversation and the mindset you have about the dialogue and the narrative. The funny thing about climates is this, your staff will adjust their work systems and the way they behave to that climate. So if you come over every day and everything is a panic, and you're immediately shifting the priorities from day to day, and you're in firefighting mode, and you're behaving as a firefighter, your team, and you're recognizing people for that firefighting or that heroic effort, or working late last minute because there was the need for the whole world to the workarounds. Your staff will create a system by which they will firefight. They will start small fires. They will to be rewarded and recognized. Your work systems and the way people behave will be driven by that climate. The mood, if they're unhappy because they're not being recognized for consistent behaviors and it's changing, really has an impact. And your staff will create these work systems and these workarounds to adjust to that climate. The key thing about it, does anybody know the work system, your work processes, everything that we do, the activity we produce, the thing we pass, the information we give, it's usually all based off of a set of activities. There's a process there. That's an assembly line from that perspective, and that's a work system. And in some areas, the work system is, thank you very much. The work systems are very stable and standardized, and people work to keep work on the process to produce the value to go out. But there are management systems you wrap around these work processes. A huddle board is a tool that is part of a communication system. So a leader, there are some organizations where leaders don't meet with their staff. There are others where leaders stand up every Monday or every day or twice a week at a huddle board and communicate and talk about their work and try to clear the obstacles. And they use these systems and tools to drive behavior. That could be a behavior of respect, like if you respect your staff, you'll engage with them, you'll stand up. So by putting a tool in place, like a huddle or a team meeting, it drives an interaction between leaders and staff that otherwise wouldn't be driven if the tool wasn't in place. And if the tool is connected to other tools, it starts to create a system. And the systems will drive behaviors just on their own. So that's an example of management systems and tools. And together, when you have the right climate and the right systems in place with good workflow, you'll get results. You'll get results with behaviors that are different in the absence of these systems and tools. And these systems and tools are there. They're there no matter what. But at EDC, and by looking at the Shingle model, which we'll talk about, if you build them with purpose, you'll get different behaviors and pursue the results that you get. And if you don't tend to them and build them with purpose, they're going to build themselves. Staff will build the systems around you, but it'll be happening very randomly and without purpose. Let me go to the next slide. I put some reflection questions in here. I don't think we need them today in the room, but if you were to go back and re-look at the deck and you want to reflect and consider the impact of climate, leadership style in your area, there's some reflection questions that you can use. Go to the next slide. I might zigzag a little bit. Let's flip in one more time. I'm going to talk about the Shingle model. It's theoretical, but it's very practical. Yeah, that's great. The Shingle model is really thank you. Yeah, we got the two. My apologies. The Shingle model is a model that just talks about, again, the tagline is ideal results with ideal behaviors. And we've been using this since 2012. And it's really guided how we've built the culture at EDC by using management systems and tools. At its essence, and I'm going to skip a lot of slides here, but I'll cherry pick the ones that I need for the conversation. I'm going to adjust for the room. There are a bunch of management systems and tools we all put in place to get the results we need. There's your strategy, your objectives, your initiatives, the way you measure that. But to get the type of culture you want, it starts with leaders defining that culture. Is it a culture of heroics, workarounds, and firefighting? Is it a command and control culture you want, or a servant leadership culture? Is it principle and value based or not? And a lot of leaders will say we have values and what our behaviors will affect our values. But then they go silent on telling their staff what those values are and what those behaviors are. And until you can clarify specifically what the behaviors are that you're looking for and how they're anchored to values or business principles, it's hard to drive the culture in the way you want it, because to us, culture is the behaviors that we exhibit in alignment with our values and business principles in pursuit of our results. And without working hard at refining and getting clarity on what are the values. At EDC, they're people, passion, learning, and excellence. They can be straightforward. We have business principles, there's 10 of them. One example is create value for the customer, constancy of purpose, so lead with constancy of purpose, think systematically, continuously improve, lead with humility, respect every individual are examples. And until we clarified that, we weren't able to then anchor the behaviors that we wanted from staff to purpose. So now it's behave with constancy of purpose and lead with humility, and we've asked the executives to define specifically what would that look like day to day. When you go to meetings with your staff, what does humility need to look like? What does respect every individual look like? What does constancy of purpose need to look like? And what it forces us to do at EDC is build and put tools in place to drive the behaviors. So constancy of purpose is something we've been focusing on for a long time at EDC as a principle. And when we focused on it and learned a lot about it, we learned that we actually didn't have a strategy at EDC. We had a corporate plan that talked about how we'd spend the capital budget. And it was a 5-year corporate plan that was to go to Parliament, but it really was 15 months out, maybe 18 months out in scope, and then there's a lot of assumptions after. We didn't have a pure strategy, a vision. And the executives for the past 4 years went and we learned how to create a strategy. We had to use external consultants at times. We inserted tools like a tool called Playing to Win, which helps us create a strategy. We learned how to use roadmaps better, which is a tool. We learned how to create a target operating model. We learned how to define our measures, short, medium, and long-term measures, where we used to only have short-term measures. We learned to insert a tool called an X matrix, a Hoshin X matrix, which allowed us to organize the long-term with the annual objectives, how to put roles and accountabilities, how to measure our targets, and how to do check-ins monthly on one piece of paper called an X matrix. And all these little tools, when put together, was a system that drove us to behave with constancy of purpose. And now when you go to EDC, you'll see all these tools on our huddle boards that force leaders to align their daily operations up to the corporate strategy. These tools are linked up and down vertically, and all leaders are working harder to behave with constancy and purpose in line with that. And having the focus on the principles and getting curious about them, I touched the board, enables us to build these systems that can drive our behavior. Another example, to make it a bit simpler, you guys have these huddle boards here. If you're just walking into our building at EDC, you'll see they're everywhere. You know, of course, our floors are messy because every leader has a huddle board, but 5 years ago, they were not present in the firm. So when the executives wanted to lead by example, and they wanted to drive better communication up and down the chain of command, it started by our CFO grabbing a huddle board and a coach for my team and learning how to drive the conversation that he wanted to have with his direct reports. And when he grabbed that and designed that huddle board, I don't think he asked his direct reports to also get a huddle board, but within 3 months, all executives had grabbed a huddle board, and almost every leader in that vertical silo, the CFO, had a huddle board. And within 6 months, I had facilities calling me saying, why are we buying so many huddle boards at this building? What's going on? And today we sit here with a communication system that enables every leader to stand up in front of their team. And so I'm a frontline leader, and I'll stand up and huddle with my team and have conversations about what's important this week. How is what we're doing linked to what we're supposed to be doing this month and this quarter? And I will, within a day or two, walk in and have a similar huddle with my boss, who has that huddle with his boss, and right up to the president. So everybody within 48 hours at the start of every week has had a linked conversation using around huddle boards, which is driving a lot of up and down alignment in communication. So that tool was put in place, but it's part of a communication system that's driving a lot of behaviors. It's driving a lot of behaviors in alignment with our principles and values. And doing it, and when our results aren't there, we get curious about what is we have to tweak about our processes or about the systems and tools. As an example, again, this X matrix piece of paper that talks about what we're supposed to be working on and are we winning or losing relative to our long-term strategy. We got to a point where when we were doing check-ins on those, we were finding that we weren't winning, we weren't losing, and our results weren't there. And people were wanting to throw the tool out, saying this thing doesn't work, you know. And we were able to call out and say to them, don't throw the tool out at this point. Get curious about the fact that the tool's working. It's calling out that you're not winning, that people aren't doing what they're supposed to do. Let's learn to use the tool better, the better purpose, and see the conversation we're having. And let's refine that to get the behaviors that we want. I've been talking a lot. I see a lot of deep thinking and a lot of nodding. Does anybody have any questions or?
Well, just to let you know that well, I'm Emily from the Modus team, and that's how we work in our team. We do stand-up meetings every week for only project, not day-to-day content, but after we have a meeting as well. So, and it's true how much our team is able to see how we work, where we are, and it's an awesome way to communicate. And I was wondering as well, from all of this, you're saying that you're creating tools, but is it throughout your department? Everybody's using it throughout the department the same way, standardized, or some people are still doing stuff their own way? Which is a lot of what's going on here. Like we have so many applications, but people uses one because it's easier, or they don't know another one.
Yeah. What is standardized is the use of the huddle board. What the huddle board looks like. I mean, what's on it is standardized. You'll find, and you'll see people at different spots of maturity. So somebody who's using a tool or an instrument for the first time is going to use it much different than someone's been doing it for 5 years. So we coach to a standard of leaders should stand up. It's leader standard work to huddle. It's leader standard work to do it by standing. It's leader standard work to use a visual board. It could be an electronic board or a physical one. And it's leader standard work to drive certain types of conversations at that huddle. What's your focus for the week? What can I do to help? What's getting in the way? And that could be, how are you feeling? Like, how's your mood? How's your morale? Are you happy or not? Or do you need something? How's your capacity? So those are the types of conversations we coach leaders to have at a stand-up huddle. And then at the stand-up huddle, there's a communication. You know, is there anything that anybody should share with each other? Really, these are 10, 15-minute conversations, not to be about your project or your work. It's like, I'm going to do this thing this week. My capacity's great. I'm feeling good. I got everything I need. I'm good to go. Or, you know what, I'm overloaded. I need help from the team. I need my leader to help me prioritize. I need a coworker to help share the load. My car broke down. My dog threw up. If you need to work with me for the next 6 hours, be careful. And we will have conversations like that, you know. And then recognize people. What are we grateful for? What are we pleased with in a coworker? Who do we want to recognize? And it can recognize somebody just for doing a good job, like have a great shift. You know, we got over years ago. Why would I recognize somebody for doing the job they're paid for? We will recognize people. You had a great shift. You know, you killed it in that meeting yesterday. You had a great presentation. So we'll do that to lift spirits and drive good wellness on the team. And then we'll talk about action items. In that conversation, action items will be assigned that nature. So that's like a stand-up huddle, and that's pretty common across the company. And I'm not gonna, and I was taking people on a tour last week and I saw variation also. But I saw a huddle board, I saw the attempt at these conversations. It's clear to me there's room for growth and improvement. And then that opens a dialogue to see if that's can be slotted in to help somebody grow to the next level. They may also, we also coach people to say the conversation needs to be the conversation you need at your time on your team. So the boards will look different, and we encourage the boards to change. They could change every month, every 6 months, to make sure it's driving that conversation that you need to have on your team. Eventually they do stabilize, as teams kind of get their mojo in place. These happen, so on Monday mornings at 8 a.m., the executive team stand up at their huddle board with the president, and they huddle for 25 minutes. They all have to handwrite and fill it in. Like on any team, you got to pre-populate it before you show up at the meeting. They do that too, and they do their huddle, and then they have their, for an hour and a half, they have their normal Monday morning meeting. And then when that meeting's over with the CEO, every SVP, by 4 o'clock on Monday, have had a huddle with their direct reports. And I huddle with my vice president. So vice presidents report to the executives report to the CEO, and I report to a vice president. So my executive, Derek Lane, will have met with his team, exec team, on Monday mornings at 8. Derek will have met with all his vice presidents at 1 o'clock on Tuesday. I huddle at 9 with my vice president. I huddle with my direct team at 8:45. I huddle again with my vice president on Wednesday. So see, within 48 hours, the entire chain of command is huddled, and that's common across the corporation using these boards. And there's a spot for escalate up and escalate down.
So how do you keep track of the previous titles? You take a photograph of it? I mean, what is your data communication system to see if things are moving forward over time?
So the question is, how do we keep track of the previous huddle? It's on the huddle board. We don't wipe the huddle board clean. It's a continuum conversation. So what are you working on this week? So most huddle boards have everyone's name on the team. So Derek Lane has his vice presidents listed there, and they write what their priorities are for the week. When this week is over, these are my critical few priorities I need to get done. 3 or 4. You might do 12 things that week, or 45, but these are the critical 3. And then you huddle again in a few days. Like my team huddles on Thursday in the morning to sort of say, how are we doing? Are we going to succeed this week tactically? We got 2 more days left. What do we got to do? Why are we not getting this week's priorities done? And then we have team meetings that can focus on the month, and quarterly meetings in the quarter.
Yeah, I'm just curious about the we manage this discussion. From the first questions that you pointed out, it all seems rather bottom up. Tell me about your focus, what do you need, etc. You mentioned action items. I mean, I think at some point you also need some kind of guidance in terms of here are things I want you to do. So how do you turn to that?
It is good. This is the first time I've done this presentation, so you can see I'm a little clumsy, but I'm going to jump deep into the deck because I like how we're doing real examples, and I think it's better that I zoom out and show the model. Starting with the model was a little too theoretical and it was awkward for me, but I can really see, we'll keep doing this dialogue. You go to a slide in the deck that looks like this. It's going to be about 15 slides in. There we go. Here's a huddle board. So it is, the huddle is about what we're going to achieve this week, but we only know what we're working on because it's anchored in a plan for the year. That's anchored in a plan, the strategy that the team has. So when we focused heavily on constancy of purpose and asking all leaders to lead with constancy of purpose, every leader needs to do that. Every leader needs to have a strategy for their team. Where does that team need to be in 5 years? Why should that team continue to be in business? We're all there to produce results, and what's our strategy to stay relevant and to be successful in the context of what we've been hired to do? So Not that tool, having a strategy in place, and we have a tool called a playing to win methodology where we can work with leaders to create a 3 to 5 year strategy. Not every leader has that in place, but I'd say a lot more do than used to. And then having that long-term strategy allows you to have a roadmap, because the strategy is about where you need to be in the future to be successful. So there's going to be gaps between the way your current team is set up and where it needs to be in the future. So there's initiatives and improvement activities that need to be done to get the team's capabilities to where it needs to be. You can use a roadmap to time phase that improvement out. And then to make choices for this year, we use a tool called an X matrix. It's down in the corner. Oh, I keep doing that. Not bad, actually. I'm going to go forward. 2. Am I able to do it? One more. I want to go in there. This X matrix says, what are the initiatives you're going to work on this year? And you list them here with your team. And it needs to be anchored to objectives that are 3 to 5 years. So your strategy when you write your strategy, you come down to a few statements about to reflect your strategy. And then your initiatives can be correlated to your strategy, high, medium, low correlation. So you can list your initiatives, and the correlations give you priorities. Now, which initiatives are top priority? You put your team members in here. That's actually my team right there, so I didn't know that. That's pretty good. And you assign them to work on everything. So I'm the leader of the team, but I give out all accountability to people on my team to work on stuff. I'm ultimately accountable, but I put accountability to one person. I assign accountabilities. I give people responsibilities to work and serve in a working group with staff members. And then I write the metrics in. How will I know that initiative 1, was it delivered on time, on budget, on quality? Did we generate hours saved? Type of metrics. Correlate those also. And then every month we get together as a team and we take a look, how are we doing against every initiative? So I ask the A. So every week at the huddle, I go back to the huddle board. That's my Hoshin, but that's not my huddle board. We go back 2 slides. Every week now, when your staff is saying what they're working on, we hold each other accountable. We listen to each other to make sure that people are working on things that are strategically important for our X matrix, for our Hoshin. And if we see somebody, and the high-performing team kicks in, because when it's safe and there's good role clarity and structure, Sasan, who's in the room, Sasan might say to Ken, I noticed you've been working on a bunch of things in the past few weeks that I don't see any connection to what we're supposed to be doing this year. Please talk to me about that. So it can really help hold people accountable to execute on the things that matter for this year. And we know what matters for this year because we've built our plan for the year, and we know that plan is anchored to something strategic. And that strategy that I wrote is nested in my boss's strategy, whose strategy is nested in the president's strategy. And every leader has an X matrix at EDC. And they talk because the objectives I get in my X matrix are initiatives from my boss's X matrix. And my vice president's initiatives are linked to objectives. And those objectives are initiatives in the executive's X matrix. So we actually are starting our Hoshin season next week, where the CEO has to have his Hoshin written for 2019 by the 12th of October. And then the executives have to have theirs done by the 20th. And the vice presidents by the 1st of December. And every leader has to have theirs written by the 6th of February. So none of that infrastructure existed 4.5 years ago at EDC. And it started by a few people. One of them was my team when we were stood up. We looked at the Shingle principles, and there are 10 of them. And we were asked to be in charge of helping the executive decide how to grow the culture. And we wanted to work on continuous improvement. We've been doing that for a long time. But my team and a few other teams, I'm not taking credit for it fully, said, continuous improvement is great, let's keep working on it, but what's getting in the way of it is we don't know where we're going. We don't know how to prioritize it. We've got to the point now after 7 years of working on CI, we got great systems in place. Well, we did put the continuous improvement culture across the enterprise also, but if we don't create a strategy and know where we're going, we don't know what to improve once we've done all the low-lying fruits. And a lot of people don't know who their customer is in the building. The internal people, the accountants don't know who their customer is. So we work on people understanding their processes, and that the next person in the process is your customer. And we said to the executives, we need to work on constancy of purpose. And we got curious about that. And we started to then pull tools in to build systems that drove us to behave in alignment with constancy of purpose. And a purposeful organization will grab these tools and pull them in with, the purpose is because you know you're doing it for constancy of purpose. Here's where if you were to back way up to, and this is where I'll back up, this is where the Shingo model has helped us. Back way up to this slide. So it's the Shingo model when we constantly sort of study it, try to understand it, because we're always learning it as we mature, is many organizations will look at the results and realize that they got gaps, and they'll go grab tools and say, I went to that conference, or I listened to Scott Powell talk, I think I need a huddle board. And they grab that huddle board and they said, that's my winning solution. And if I do that, we're going to be more successful. And that's it. That's the only purpose that's anchored in that conversation. And we have a tendency, historically, I've done it, and I still do it at times, to go counterclockwise, to see my results and run the solution and grab a tool and pull it in, not realize that it's connected to a system. And if I do, then I start to tweak systems sort of randomly. But as you mature, and you become a purpose-driven corporation, you start to go the other way. You see that your result is off, and you get curious about we get curious about what's going on in your organization from a value and a principle perspective. So when we looked and said our results need to get better, let's do more continuous improvement, but we stopped that conversation and said it's actually constancy of purpose, focus on process. It's our behaviors that are not aligned to those principles that are getting in our way of being more successful. And if we can work on behaving more with constancy of purpose and flow and pull on process, the focus on process lets us see who our customer is when you're not a customer-facing employee. And at EDC, 70% of the employees are not customer-facing. They are in IT, they're in legal, they're in economics is customer-facing. And when we started to do that, then we started to build systems and tools with purpose. So then we realized we needed to behave better with constant purpose. Oh, what do we need? Oh, I think we need a strategy system. We might have to change our communication system. Let's now find tools and let's pull them into systems and let's adjust the systems for the purpose of behaving with constancy of purpose, focusing on process. And that clockwise conversation is a purposeful conversation. Purposeful leadership. And then when your senior leaders can drive expectations and they set expectations using language anchored to those principles, and they themselves behave and allow the systems to be built and developed, and they use the tools themselves, you can accelerate your cultural change, top down, because people will follow, be inspired. And for us, using the Shingo model and working with consultants that understand it, they've helped us see that it's a clockwise conversation, not counterclockwise, and that there are 10 principles. And while they're all important, where are you going to put your energy this year or for the next 2 years? For what purpose? What's the root cause of what's getting in the way of cultural growth? At EDC a few years ago, it was constancy of purpose. Today, where we sit is, it's still constancy of purpose, but now we have an execution issue. We want to execute. We have a new audacious strategy. We're trying to go to 30,000 customers. We need to think different. We need to partner with other people differently. We need to be more relevant for Canadians. Our partners do too. And it's forcing us to learn to we created the strategy, then we had to plan it, we put planning tools in place, we're still refining the planning, we need to execute better, we need to build our partnerships better, we need to hold ourselves more accountable. So we're going to the tools like the X Matrix and learning how to drive better accountability through setting, using roles, the RACI model, roles and accountabilities, measuring. We're good at, we're not great at, we do set targets, but we can be better in calculating the actuals against it, holding ourselves accountable, accountability to the things we want to do. We need to do better. So we still have constancy of purpose, but now it's shifted. And now, because we've installed a lot of systems and tools across this enterprise, you can go everywhere and see huddle boards, and go everywhere and see potions, go everywhere and see meetings, you can go everywhere and see communication up and down. You can go everywhere at EDC and see people understanding our common problem-solving methodology. Our continuous improvement systems are everywhere. People are now serving their customers internally. They're understanding customer pain points. They're learning to problem solve for the customer. That's happened in 4 or 5 years. That's become enterprise-wide, but it's happening in verticals. Now the Shingle model shows us that a company will mature to learning to go horizontal. Value stream leadership. So your vertical leadership in addition to your horizontal leadership. So we've started at EDC, and it's been organic. We didn't have to tell the leadership that. Because we matured, we are now going more and more collaborative and horizontal, and we're organizing as value streams. And leaders are leading to lead horizontally while also leading vertically. And that's so the importance of a Shingle principle called think systematically is very important, because now leaders have to use the tools and systems to get their vertical working well systematically and the horizontal. So we're installing all these tools and systems horizontally. So for those that work with EDC, we have a value stream called the knowledge value stream, the core value stream, and the revenue value stream. They were stood up 12 months ago. And vice presidents who had only been VPs of their areas are now VPs, and they have to work together in a leader-follower. Vice presidents report to vice presidents, lead vice presidents of value streams. So we've had to work on governance systems. And they've been installing huddle boards, communication systems. They're working on their horizontal strategies. So everything we've been doing in the vertical is now going horizontal. The Shingle model also. Now the thing to know is we don't run around telling all staff about the Shingle model. It's something that, yes, question.
Yeah. So if I understand you correctly, when you look at the results, let's say you have negative results, some changes needed. When you go to the guiding principles, that's just to check to see if there's some tweaking that has to be done with your guiding principles. But generally speaking, the guiding principles are pretty constant year after year. So the bulk of the work is done in the systems, developing new approaches, new ways of doing things. And once you've done that, then you look at tools that you can acquire to facilitate that. Is that the way that essentially?
Yeah, that's the clockwise, purposeful flow.
Yeah.
And it's helped us a lot because we hold leadership conferences. We would get all our leaders together twice a year. We get all the employees together once a year. We do town halls. And when my team would help leaders organize those town halls, let's say we did one with the leader last year, and then we did 2 in the first half of the year. We're going to do the next one in the third quarter of a year. Many times we'll see leaders saying, here's what we got to do with staff. Now we got to focus on accountability. Let's do a whole town hall around the theme of accountability. But we'll come in and say, but what happened to the theme of humility from the spring? Where'd that go? Why did you solve all those problems? Well, no, they're still there too. Well, then why are you not behaving with constancy of purpose and extending the themes through longer? Why are you shifting every town hall or conference what you're trying to achieve with your team or your leaders? You would see that behavior a lot happening. But when we got the discipline of asking ourselves, are we organizing this event with constancy of purpose? Oh, what was that thing we focused on with the last event? And we literally go find the agenda and look at it. and hold ourselves accountable to extending the themes, what we're doing with our teams through time. And that is happening when we're building product lines and trying to, concepts around what we have to do to win. You can see that people will gravitate to the latest solution, or that they've seen at a conference or from a consulting firm or what's required. And entire divisions can shift direction within 6 months. But getting disciplined and asking ourselves, are we staying constant through purpose? Why are we shifting? Is helpful, but also having the tools in places, the strategies, the things that are documented and written down has helped more from that perspective.
See the Toyota Way is up there.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that?
The Toyota Way, that's one of their visuals that they use inside Toyota, but Toyota Way, they've been a principle-based organization. The 10 principles in the Shingle model have kind of come from the Toyota. If you read the book The Toyota Way, there are 14 principles in the book The Toyota Way. But over its 50-year history, it has been led from a principles perspective that I think they've crafted over time. They've always led with the concepts of respect and humility. And you see that in the way that their workforce loyalty programs, they've always worked about developing people. So their whole management system is about we're developing people who happen to build cars, who happen to run hospitals now. But at its core, when you look at Toyota, it's been principle-based around people development, continuous improvement, respect, and humility. And when people that have studied Toyota, they realize that there are core principles that have been true through time. So they've just got a visual on how their principles are stacked up against some of the programs that are going. But they're known to be a purpose-driven, principle-driven organization. And there are others.
So I guess Shingo in Japanese is Toyota. I'm just kidding, but I'm a trade commissioner last 10 years. I'm supposed to do Beijing and China 4 years and Barbados 2 years, two very different countries. And I met with people from EDC representatives and all this. Like, what is the strategy now of EDC with the Global Affair Canada, the Trade Commissioner Service? Because, like, to my knowledge, I was mainly like a meeting company who were sometimes struggling to find funding, or they want to invest abroad, or and they said, well, you should basically also be in touch with EDC and all these things. And how much time you pass helping companies in the sense that I read this in French, and the other term that says recognized by Trade and Export Finance magazine as the best export credit organization in the world. Now, what is your reputation with a company? Because a company still sometimes you feel, oh, these are people from the government, the private sector is always different. So what is the strategy? How much time you pass like trying to help company? How much company help this process? And like they talk about 905, you help 9,400 companies every year. Is that mainly SMEs now, or it's also a mix with a little bit larger companies? And because for us, and we're abroad, it's a little bit also how we work with the EDC also, because now you're having some office in some countries. Now you have some officers even.
Yeah.
And I don't know also if you work also with CCC, because CCC is more used Canadian corporation, more used commercial corporation, more used to work with government to government.
Yeah.
But when I was in Barbados, they also EDC was there, and they work together, and they have partners and all that. So it's a little bit like as a whole strategy. And how do you feel us as when we are abroad or trade commissioners, or how should we actually be more involved with EDC, and how can we work together and all that? So this is the whole system, like, and as I said, as a company now, like you're a well-recognized company, really like to use your service, or it depends on which ones, or?
Well, I know I'm not at the center of a lot of those parts of EDC's strategic element, but what I do know is there's a EDC Way principle, Shingle principle, called create value for the customer. And the customer for us and for CCC and BDC and TCS are Canadians. We all are in business to serve Canadians and to help make Canada stronger. So that's a common that's a thing that's common to us all, and that's a reason why we do collaborate between organizations, because we put the customer first. We put Canadians at the center. So our operations abroad for EDC, we have I know we have worked hard to try to leverage our experience and our skill sets to help Canadians in partnership with CCC and TCS. So I think in the local offices there's a lot of partnership that takes place, and I know the organizations, we have been trying hard to collaborate to provide a common service to Canadians. There's a lot of good work that's been going on for a lot of good years by a lot of people. And we just launched our new EDC brand yesterday, and we just activated our brand and launched it in the marketplace yesterday. And I went onto EDC's website yesterday afternoon, our new website, and I think it's one of the best we've ever seen. I'll admit I've been confused by EDC's website when I pretend I'm a Canadian, a small I got a $20,000 lumber contract overseas for the first time, and I've been making lumber in Orleans. You know, I actually literally have a friend who does that. It's confusing. It used to be confusing. You go to EDC's site to understand what EDC does, let alone that site right now. In the top left, and it says learn how to export. It's nothing but a nice series of links to TCS, the CCC. How to build a business plan. It's over to another government market. How to engage in a foreign market. It's over to. So what I'm seeing as an employee of EDC, knowing that this partnership has been going on, but I've never had that role in the company, is I'm seeing the manifestation of all that hard work, and I know there's a lot more to do. But I think the common denominator is create value for the customer, and for us as employees of Canada, it's Canadians, and for EDC, when we created our strategy, we looked at our customers, and we had to spend a lot of years really understanding how to put the customers at the center. And we've kept create value for the customer as a principle every year. I will never let that principle not be a principle of focus, and neither will some of our executives. And we learned that we've been serving 7,500 customers for the past 10 years, and it's always been 7,500 customers, give or take a few hundred. And through our market research, we realized that there's potentially 100,000 Canadians that could use EDC services. And while the 7,500 customers we've been serving for 10 years have been giving us great customer satisfaction scores, like industry-leading Net Promoter Scores, we were not relevant to tens of thousands of Canadians. So that became our burning platform, EDC, to sort of say, why is it that there's so many Canadians that aren't even aware of us or can leverage the services of the Canadian organization? So part of the partnership is leveraging us all coming together to be able to help more and more Canadians. So we're now up to 9,600. We're probably going to serve 13,000. We know we're going to serve 13,000 Canadians this year. That wouldn't have happened if we hadn't figured out that we weren't relevant to Canadians, and that has motivated us to launch new partnerships and new ways of using our knowledge, our information with the Trade Commissioner services too, in pursuit of helping more Canadians, and that needle's moving. So we're becoming more relevant.
And they'll be working with SMEs, but also with some large corporations. Also, it's a mix of them.
Yeah, the core of when you look at when we are well penetrated with large corporations. We're about moderately penetrated with medians, but we underserve small and micro customers. So when you look at the market, the number of Canadians in the small and micro, and you're curious about how that we know we can help them, but they need to know about us, and we know that we with our other Canadian partners can help. We're learning to be more relevant to them, and our numbers are growing in those spaces, like in the small and micro. That's where we need to grow and be more relevant with.
And according to your model, when a company requests your services and all that, it's all free, or you have to pay a certain amount for certain services? It depends. How does it work for the, because you're a government organization, is it all free, or is certain services you have to pay? And I know they have a loan and all this, but if we use services, how does it work?
We actually, our Act of Parliament requires us to be financially self-sustaining, so we do have to charge. And we pay dividends back to Canada, about $1 billion a year. So there are some things we do that are mandate driven, where we do it where we don't need to recoup our costs. And there are certain things we do where we have to be competitive with the marketplace. We lend loans, and we have to be competitive with the marketplace. We can't crowd out the private sector. So we need to play in that space where the private sector wants us to be there with them in partnership. And so in those services, we can't be giving those away for free. We need to provide competitive in our insurance products. But our knowledge and information can be distributed in different ways. A couple questions from back.
Yes, so my question is regarding like, what about a team that works a lot with ad hoc requests? So it's hard to have actually like a week planning because you never know what type of my team personally, we work in the development side, but on policy stream a bit more.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's a bit hard to, well, first policy, it's a very long term, so a little objective or maybe different by week. And yeah, a lot of ad hoc now that fits into that.
Yeah, that's a big challenge for a lot of teams and leaders. You need to make your work visible, and my team would have that same dilemma. We have 1,500 employees, and anybody can call us. But our strategy, as a team, your team strategy, by using the tool that we use called Playing to Win, it forces you to make choices about who are your customers, who are your priority customers. So where do you put your capacity as a team? Everywhere, everybody at all times, at all costs? Or is there a way you prioritize? And then you can organize your work around those priority customers, and then you save capacity to service anybody from anywhere. So my team does that. Like, our priority customers are the senior leaders, and the bulk of my team's capacity needs to go to them, but the phone can ring from anywhere in the company. And we will never say no, but because they're a lower priority, and that's anchored to our strategy, which we'll always say yes, but the response might be yes, however, can next week work in a day or two. It's not at all costs. And for any team to be successful, you have to make choices. Choice making is critical in strategy. And sometimes not every customer, every company makes choices about customers who they will and won't serve. And then they make choices about how they will serve those people they chose not to make a priority. So for my team, we will serve everybody, but it's not everybody equally. And then now with it being strategic and deliberate, you can set expectations with customers. You can now work in collaboration with your customers and the other leaders to talk about service level delivery. When you call my team, it won't be an immediate turnaround, it might be a day or two. And with other leaders, you can give them the why. So now that's purposeful leadership also, being able to explain to your customers why their turnaround time may not be what it is for others.
I found it very interesting what EDC did, had a constant set of customers, they're all satisfied, and then one day they wanted to take a look to see if they were actually meeting the unmet need in the marketplace in Canada. So that's a conscious decision. So I think that tells us something about organizations that want to be part of performing, that they're not just satisfied with the results of surveys for the current clients, and high marks on that. They're actually looking out and saying, what do we offer as an organization? And are there customers out there or the clients out there that are not receiving services from us, they're not seeking services from us? And what do we have to do to grow our client base, to improve the services for those unmet needs in the society? So whether it's consular, I think that's a big area where we make improvements in getting to more Canadians for consular services, or the trade commissions, or whatever business line we have in our own organization. I'm not sure that we do that very well. I mean, we certainly have aspired to reach 100,000, go from 7,300 to 100,000 over time.
Yeah.
That's the organization's, our organization's not there. So I think that's very interesting when you talk about systematic and purposeful management or whatever.
Yeah.
is maybe something we need to reflect on at one point session.
And this happened, I like to say this, having been there, we've been focusing on the customer for many years. So it's not like it was in year one when we decided let's focus on customer, let's grab that principle, create value for the customer, that we discovered that relevancy story. You know, we started by being curious about the customer. We got curious about our 7500 for many years. Let's get better and better with the existing customer base. But then we learned about journey mapping, customer experience, you know, the learning. We have a value, one of our values is learning. So the learning and passion and staying with it year over year, you know, it iterated to when we inserted a strategic tool. So a lot of the tools came together and the breakthrough thinking, you know, transpired in late 2015 from many different disciplines. That's really, I think, because EDC had been on a journey of just constantly learning and experimenting and trying new things, that it tipped to a point where we realized we're not relevant. We're relevant to the people that are buying our services. We're not relevant, and we don't even talk to the Canadians that don't buy our services. So we had to learn how to talk and listen to people we didn't have connections with. And the journey mapping allowed us to see that there are things that we are doing in our organization and other organizations we should partner with, where we could be more relevant earlier in a Canadian's journey. We talk now about Canadians that don't even export yet, but we know they're going to one day, and they're going to need help with their business plan, etc. EDC doesn't need to be the one that does it, but if we have a relationship with somebody, we need to at least make the connections and move them to the right channel and work in partnership. So that's an evolution. But we stayed the course because we had a value of learning and passion, and then a business principle, create value for the customer. These things helped us stay the course. And then another learning is we get stuck also. We get stuck. Sometimes we could spend a year. When we learned about the shingle, we thought we had a great culture. We've been doing lean from 2007. And we thought we were the executives would say we thought we were world-class lean, and the Shingo Institute has a way to come in and score your culture on a scale of 1 to 5. And it's really they're scaling your behaviors. To what degree are the behaviors that you want showing up? And we got a 1.8, and it hit our executive team. They'll openly tell you, it hit them hard. You know, oh my, we've been doing all this work, and they spent a year trying to understand what it is these Shingo people were evaluating us on and what we were missing. And it led us to understand the clockwise conversation, the need to be enterprise-wide, the 10 principles. We used to have 5, and then the 10 came along. So then even inside our own building, we got very confusing for a while. How are we on time?
Yeah,
11. There's a slide that looks like this. When the Shingo Institute came in and they evaluated us, they evaluated us on their its maturity model. You've seen it in many places. There's digital maturity models, enterprise information, reporting models. Now we're getting there. Here. So if EDC says they're about ideal results and ideal behaviors, then let's go find out if that's true. Let's do an assessment. Where is the firm at? The assessors will, and we've learned to do it ourselves to self-assess, but we still bring in outside assessors. They'll start by talking to the senior leaders and asking them about what are you trying to achieve at this organization? Talk to me about the results you're trying to achieve. Talk to me about the behaviors you want. And then, after having a quick conversation with senior leaders, they say, thank you. Now I'm going to go talk to 40% of your frontline workers. And I'm going to see to what extent you're getting the results you want with the behaviors you want. So they start to score out and evaluate you against achieving your KPIs, your key performance indicators, but then they'll give you a score on your key behavioral indicators. And they will go from area to area, talking to 30, 40%. They need to go across your enterprise, having quick conversations to to ferret out and zero in on to what degree the behaviors are showing up. And they will score it on a scale of 1 to 5, but behavior can be measured by how frequently do you see that behavior. If leaders are to lead with respect and humility, and one of the ways that this enterprise it shows up is by leaders standing up in front of their teams at huddles. They'll go out and talk about it. So how do you connect with your leader? They won't ask, yes and no questions with staff. And talk about how you connect with your leaders. They're listening. Well, my leader stands up every Monday morning. We have a nice dialogue. I meet with them one-on-one in one-on-one meetings. We have my leader drops by my desk. Talk about what does your leader talk about when he drops by your desk. Is it just is it about intimacy? Is it focus on results? So they'll assess and sort of see to what, they're looking for frequency. Is that behavior in a leader or your coworker showing up infrequently or sporadically, immature, or is it steady, repeatable, constant? Every week that leader is there. ICs are swarming with problems. Continuous improvement is happening with it's happening several times throughout a week. So that behavior is frequently showing up. Has that been happening for a long time, or did they just start doing this last week because they knew me as an assessor was coming in the building, so they started to find out that behavior has been happening for a really long time? It's a more mature behavior. Is it, how intense is that behavior? Are the people in this area apathetic, indifferent? Are they rolling their eyes when they talk to me about that behavior? Are they passionate? Is there a sparkle? Are they energized? So the more energized and tenacious and commitment there is to that behavior, it's more maturity. Is that isolated just in this one team or these 3 people on the team? Am I seeing it everywhere across the division? To what degree is that behavior showing up scope-wise? And is it showing up in all the roles? Is it the frontline employees that are demonstrating these behaviors, but the senior leaders aren't? Or when I go and talk up and down the chain of command and interview, I see that behavior and everyone playing their position. And to the extent that they can ferret out that, where the markers, you kind of get a maturity score. So the score is just a score, but it's really about the behavior showing up. And the more mature you are, the more frequent it's happening, the more passion there is, the longer it's been going on, it's across your entire area, and people are playing their position. And that's a high-performing organization. They're getting the results they want with the behaviors they want. And it's a clockwise. So in the beginning, where you are, don't be discouraged. I took over a new team of actuaries 2 months ago. I'm right now leading this way, and I'm trying to get the team. I'm 8 weeks in to get myself this way. The journey, and it can reset itself as you get turnover in your division. It's a journey that never ends. So, and as coaches and leaders, it's all about, you might have to ride the bike and do it for people, but it's always for the purpose of getting off of that bicycle that the organization, the area, the individual is doing it themselves on coaching. So that's helped guide us also.
So the Shingo Institute probably has done these type of audits for many different organizations in the world, and you have your key behavioral indicators and your key performance indicators. So KPIs mentioned also profitability, employee retention, all these type of things which are very measurable. What does the research in the Shingo Institute tell us about organizations we may know of? You cited Toyota, the sort of uses this. What are some of the other companies that are considered high performing, that score high, and a clear correlation between KPIs and KPIs? Can you kind of describe who's using it?
The Shingo, culture, like there are different cultural models. I've done research on them too. At their core, with these 10 Shingo principles are principles that are proven to be true across industries through time, and they're undeniable. So, and you'll see them whether I'm volunteering with my church organization, in the room, they show up time and time again. Constancy of purpose, focus on the customer, think systematically, always improve, humility, respect. And it's a principle because if you don't agree with it, you don't have to agree with the principle. But as a business leader, if you don't behave in alignment with that principle, there will be consequences. At some point, the performance of your area organization, you can do great for a while, but it will have negative consequences. if you don't focus on the customer, if you don't have constancy of purpose, the consequences are high turn. In organizations that are always shifting directions, staff turnover is high. If you're not leading with humility and respect, climate is poor, people don't want to work, there's stress. We know what stress does to performance. So those principles will show up in all the culture models. They all have different words, but they can map back to the similar concepts. I've yet to find a model or an organization's model that doesn't, they might use different words, but it's these 10. The Shingo Institute provides some awards. Every year their annual conference, here's a winner of the Shingo Prize. Shingo Prize means that they come in and evaluated you and you're a 5. And now you're kind of good. So there's a list. You can go back and see who's won the award, the gold, the silver, and the bronze. Silver would be your sort of like, bronze is your, kind of get rewarded for being on the journey. EDC, we're 3. One thing I just like to get a little defensive, and I feel like we're enterprise-wide. A lot of the organizations that win the Shingo Prize, it might be Inco is one, but it was their Mexican blend. 200 people. So we're 1,500 global. I'm right now, there's Mass Mutual, there's Liberty Mutual, there's Discover credit cards. Like in the financial services space, we're kind of equal peers. But I think one of us will one day, I've never asked to kind of win the prize or the award. It's been about us just growing our culture. But one day, one of us is going to challenge for the prize and be enterprise excellence. Like the industry itself used to be manufacturing excellence, then it went to operational, and now it's tipping to enterprise excellence. In fact, I'm going to change my team name because we are now enterprise-wide. It's not just in one operation. So we might hit enterprise excellence where it's an entire corporation. So there's a lot. They're out there in the Shingo, so you can see the winners from that perspective. And then there's other culture models. There's one that Volage or something that gives awards. So you can kind of see who these world-class companies are. Now, some of the assessors have told me the ones that win the award, there's never really a true 5. It's like the professor that will never give you the 100% score. Yeah.
Thanks. So this is a really inspirational presentation, and I really twigged that last piece that you pointed out and how you're trying to now implement it in this new team. And I'm trying to take away, I guess, kind of a practical next step for myself.
Yeah.
I guess at the outset you mentioned that this really started being implemented kind of at middle management and then grew sort of vertically and then horizontally.
Yeah.
I'm a deputy director in a division. I can see immediately some value in how I would organize myself and some of these tools, as you say. So I could see this sort of starting with getting myself a whiteboard or something like that.
Yeah.
But obviously, on a more global scale, there's a lot of intersection with the department's business planning process, and I guess I'm not sure how far one can go down the road, from where I'm sitting versus, as sort of an organizational kind of rethink of its approach.
Key takeaways for you when we would coach area leaders is step 1, which is great. You're here, you're learning, and if you like the theoretical foundations and you're going to remain curious, stay curious. Evaluate your leadership against this. And if you want to build some of this capability in your area, and you can find a person to partner with who reports to you in that area who might be passionate, you can encourage them to learn about it and help you. You in partnership with people in your area can start your own journey. One tool at a time, one system, and that's how at EDC, it was a vice president who discovered the Shingo model. He got curious, he brought it in, he spent time with it. He convinced, he actually got some funding to get that survey done, and the executives looked at it and they got inspired. But it does start with you yourself making your personal choice. how to build your high-performing area. And I believe in what model will guide you. Because I believe without a model or a roadmap, it's a random walk. Where your process, the Shingo model has anchored us, love it or hate it. I've yet to find one that I would want to swap it out with. There are others that are very similar. And you're here, you're curious, you're learning. You're going to try something yourself. It needs to be this direction in the beginning. Being aware of how you got to progress. And you can only do 2 to 3 things a year, I'd say, because we're busy. We have a lot to do, a lot of things we're being asked to learn. And it could take, as adult learners, it takes sometimes 6 to 9 months to, so yeah, grab the one tool, but now you're doing it with more purpose. And get good at that conversation. You'll quickly realize that the conversation is the way you want it because you need to put another tool in or change your dialogue. Find somebody who reports to you who is passionate that you find a way for them to have time for them to help grow you. Like the organization has been needed to see that they put subordinates in charge of coaching leaders also. And that humility, that not worrying about where your rank is, and just knowing that every coach needs a coach, every leader needs a coach, and it could be the people in your own area. That can be helpful also.
And I see a lot of, like, people want to change their leadership in terms, like, we're offering the lean training. Our group is offering to all the department the yellow belt lean training, which was a biggest success. We had like 65 applicants, only 20, but I think this is a good opportunity to jump in these kind of training because it tells you about all of those stuff.
All of those things.
Yeah, all of those things, the Kanban, how to be organized, how to change your leadership. So I could let you know when the next one is. And it's really fun and interesting. And it's the same concept and the same line.
The number one, the biggest, most powerful tool is that visual, that huddle board.
Oh, yeah.
It brings all the tools and all the systems into one place. So starting there is good. You may not use the whole board all the way. Start to lead your direct reports a different way through that stand-up conversation, and your growth will expand out from there. And engage your staff in it. You don't have to build the board. Build it with them. But you and your direct reports can make it their own, and then they'll start to do their direct reports.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Hope
think
that helped.
I think our time is up. Thank you very much, Scott.
Yeah.